right, so these next two problems, examples 9 and 10, are going to be from your notes yesterday that we did not finish. So solving one-step inequalities. So example number 9. Negative 12 is greater than or equal to negative 4i. So go ahead and write that down for example number 9 on your notes that we took yesterday. Okay, so I want to get this I by itself. How do I get the I by itself, Darius? By what? So I'm going to divide each side by negative 4. I'm going to bring down my variable I. Now, because I'm dividing by a negative number, what happens to my inequality sign? Yeah, you just flip it. And then I'm going to take negative 12 by negative 4. So first thing, what's 12 divided by 4? 2 negatives equal A. So 3 is less than or equal to I. Okay, and let's take a look at our last example. Negative 3 is less than J minus 3. Nick, how do I get the J by itself? I'll give you a second to write it down. Sorry. So I have J minus 3. So how to get rid of this minus 3? Well, if it looks like this, I would divide because that 3 is touching the J. But is the 3 touching the J here? No. So it's just a minus J. So what's the opposite of subtract? Add. So I'm going to add 3 to each side. So my 3's are going to cancel on my right. I bring down my J. Now I'm just adding. So I don't need to worry about flipping my sign. That's only if I multiply or divide by a negative number. So my inequality sign stays the same. Then what's negative 3 plus 3? 0. So 0 is less than J. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and get into some Khan Academy notes. Just a reminder, your Khan Academy notes are going to be the green sheets. So a recommended topic that we added to you guys was solving proportions. So solving proportions on Khan Academy. You guys have seen proportions before. So the first part here, when solving a proportion, we can use blank to make the process easier. So when I go to solve proportions, I use cross multiplication. So you can use cross multiplication. So cross multiply or cross multiplication to make the process easier. Now, cross multiplication, think about it. You're going to cross one way, cross the other way. You're going to end up with an X. I always start at my top left and I go down to the right. If you start at your bottom left and you go up to the right, you're going to end up with the same answer, but how you write your problem will look different. Either way is acceptable. I always like to go top left though. So, for our first problem, it says solve for P. 8/9 equals 12 over P. We're trying to determine what number value that P equals. So I'm going to cross multiply. I start at my top left and go down to my bottom right. So 8 times P, so I'm going to rewrite that. So 8 times P, I can just write 8P. I don't need to do a little dot or anything. So then I have to cross multiply my other number. So I'm going to go to my bottom fraction, 9, and I'm going to cross up to the 12. So then my second part of my problem is going to be 9 times 12. Okay? So here I have an equation. I have 8P equals 9 times 12. Well, the first thing I need to do is take, what's 9 times 12?
It's in like, I know it's in the hundreds, but...
Well, use a calculator. So I'm dropping down my 8p because I can't do anything with that. But I'm going to go ahead and find out what 9 times 12 is. Say it again. 108. So now I have a one-step equation here. 8p equals 108. Well, how do I solve for the p? How do I get the p by itself? Yeah, I'm going to divide each side by 8. My 8's cancel. I bring down my variable p. What's 108 divided by 8? Okay. So, because it's a decimal, I want to leave it in fraction form. So I now have to simplify 108 over 8. What are both of these numbers divisible by? 2. So what's 108 divided by 2?
54.
And 8 divided by 2? Okay. Can I simplify further?
No. Well, yeah.
Yeah. What are they both divisible by? Okay, by 2 again. So what's 54 divided by 2? 27. And what's 4 divided by 2? Okay. Can you reduce further? No. So your answer that you type into Khan Academy then would be 27 over 2. So really the only new thing that you're learning is to cross multiply. So you really don't even need to show me this step here where it says 9 times 12. When you cross multiply, you could just write it as 8p equals 108. I'll show you what I mean by this next one here. So the next proportion says solve for k. So we're trying to find out what the value of k is going to be. So I do that by cross multiplying. So when I cross multiply, I always start top left and go down. So 9 times k. What's 9 times k? 9k. Then I'm going to cross multiply 10 times 10. Well, what's 10 times 10? 100. So 9k equals 100. So I have a one-step equation here. So with this one-step equation, I'm going to solve as usual. So I'm going to circle my variable, draw my line of equality. How do I get that k by itself? Divide each side by 9. Now I know right now if I take 100 and divide it by 9, I'm going to get a decimal, right? It's not going to divide out evenly. So then the next thing I need to think, can I reduce or simplify 100 over 9? Nope, sure can't. So we're going to leave it as 100. So in Khan Academy, you would type in k equals 100 over 9. Does this look familiar to you guys? Have you solved proportions before?
Yeah.
So you guys should be able to master this topic, all right? The only difference that it might be a little bit more difficult this time because you're going to end up with decimals where you have to leave them as fractions. All right, let's take a look at the next recommended topic that we added to your list. Orders of operations. We've talked about order of operations briefly in here. So when you hear order of operations, what acronym do you think of? What little letters do you think of when they say order of operations? Huh? So how do you know order of operation means if you have a long equation, like 3 plus 2 divided by 7 squared, how do you know where to start? Say it again. PEMDAS. Yeah, order of operations, we think PEMDAS. So when you're working order of operations, you think PEMDAS. The P stands for parentheses. The E stands for exponents. The M stands for multiply. D stands for divide. A stands for add. And S stands for subtract. So you work that in order going from left to right. But a couple things you need to remember with PEMDAS. The first thing is remember that multiply and divide are in the same step. So it doesn't matter if you do division first or multiplication first. They go together. You work them in the same step. multiplication and division are in the same step. So if multiplication and division are in the same step, what else do you think are going to be completed in the same step? Yeah, addition and subtraction. Bless you. These are evaluated. Well, first of all, what does evaluate mean? What does it mean to evaluate? Like, you're going to evaluate a one-step equation. What does that mean?
When they say evaluate, I'm talking about
Leave it right.
So these are evaluated from. So if I say evaluate this expression, what does that mean?
Leave it alone. Work it out.
Work it out. Solve it. Yeah. Evaluate just means to solve when you hear a math. So order of operations, these are evaluated from which direction?
Left to right.
Yeah, left to right. Just like you read. You work it from left to right. All right, so we have 3 example problems we're going to look at and solve together. So it says evaluate the following expression. Evaluate again means just solve. So we're going to have to use PEMDAS to solve the following expression. It's 7 minus 3 plus 10. So I look at P. Do I have any parentheses? Nah. Any exponents? Nope. Any multiplication or division? Nope. Addition and subtraction? Yes. Now, so I'm going to do addition and subtraction at the same time, but I need to remember I have to work it left to right. So if I'm working it left to right here, I'm going to take 7 times 3 first. So I'm going to drop down, what's 7 minus 3 first. So what's 7 minus 3? So I'm going to drop that down. So I did 7 minus 3, so now I'm going to bring down my plus 10. So what's my last step? What's 4 plus 10? So my final answer is 14. Okay. So now we're going to evaluate the following expression, example number 2. I know I tell you guys don't use the x to show multiplication, but Khan Academy is going to use the x to show multiplication. So it's going to be 6 minus 2 times 1. So 6 minus 2 times 1. So again, let's go through the process. Do I have any parentheses?
No.
Exponents.
No.
I have exponents?
No.
No.
I love order of operations.
Okay, so no exponents. Any multiplication. So we're going to do that first. So my multiplication is 2 times 1. So anytime that I drop down and I work below, I put an equal sign. That shows me where I'm starting next. So what's 2 times 1? 2. I also need to bring down the 6 minus, because I haven't messed with that yet. I haven't solved that yet. So now I'm left with 6 minus 2, which equals 4.
So every time we get access, they have to box it in.
On Khan Academy, no. I've been teaching math now for 6 or 7 years. I'm just in the habit of when my final answer is complete, I box it. Again, I'm a visual learner. It lets me know that I'm done with that problem. All right, example number 3. We have 3 times 4 squared. So again, look at your order of operations. Do you have any parentheses?
No.
Do you have any exponents?
Yes.
Yes. So that's where you start. So you have 4 squared. 4 squared means 4 times itself twice. It doesn't mean 4 times 2. It means 4 times itself twice. So you're going to take 4 times 4, which is?
16.
So we're going to drop that down. We're going to bring down our 3 times 16. So what's 3 times 16?
48.
Say it again.
48.
Yep. And box. Okay. Flip it over. Now, evaluating expressions with one variable on Khan Academy. Now, remember, evaluate means to solve. So that top line there, evaluate means to solve.
Why would they use values?
It's just a math term. When we know the value of a variable, so like when we, for example, what that means, when we take a plus 3 equals 5, and we find what the value of a equals, we can then plug that value in. What's another word that we could plug it in?
Put it there.
So Thursday, when I'm not going to be here, I'm not going to be in here. But someone's going to plug in for me. They're going to be my, substitute. So we can substitute. The value for the variable in a known expression. When we do this, so when we go to substitute the value for the variable, if it's known, it's usually a good idea to use parentheses to make sure that we don't get confused. And I'll show you what that means in a minute. So it's a good idea to use parentheses to make sure we don't get confused. And then the last step, don't forget, when you're evaluating with expressions or variables, you need to make sure you still use order of operations. So you still need to follow PEMDAS. So let's take a look at our 3 example problems. So our directions say, evaluate P divided by 2 minus 5 when P equals 14. So they're telling us what P equals. So we need to solve or evaluate the expression. So when my expression is P divided by 2 minus 5. Well, what are they saying P equals? So I'm going to plug 14 in for P. So I'm going to put 14, I'm putting parentheses around it, divided by 2 minus 5. And then from here, I just solve. That was me. Okay. I think that's my verification code. I'll give you candy as long as you guys are kind to each other and using nice words. Like my children in the morning. I have to talk nice. Okay, so the reason why I'm putting parentheses in, don't write what I'm writing in the pink right now, but I want to explain why. Let's say I had this. Let's say I had P, 2P minus 5. So 2P minus 5. 2 next to the P means what operation you can do? Multiply. So if I just plug that 14 in without putting parentheses around it, it'd look 214, right? Yeah. And I take away the operation. So that's why I'm going to put parentheses around the number that I substitute for the variable. It won't always be necessary, but it's good probably to get in the habit of doing it now. So when you come to a problem like that, it won't get you confused. Okay, now we're going to use order of operations to solve. So do I have any parentheses? Now, when I say do I have any parentheses, I mean a set of numbers within parentheses. So do I have a set of numbers within parentheses here?
Yep.
A set of numbers? No. So then do I have any exponents?
No.
Multiplication?
No. No.
Division?
No.
Yes. So I have 14 divided by 2, which equals?
8.
Try again. 7. So then I'm going to drop down my minus 5 because I haven't solved that yet. So then what's 7 minus 5? 2. So now we're going to look at example number 2. It says evaluate 9 divided by m plus 4 when m equals 3. So what do I substitute for my m? What do I substitute for that m? 3, because it says m equals 3. So I'm just going to plug in that 3 where my m used to be. And then I'm going to solve by using order of operations. Oh, I didn't put my parentheses around. I'm going to put my parentheses around. See? I've got to get in the habit of doing that as well. Do I have parentheses? A set of numbers within parentheses? No. Exponents? Nah. Multiplication? Division? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and divide. What's 9 divided by 3?
30.
And I'm going to drop down my plus 4 because I didn't solve that part yet. So what's 3 plus 4? 7. Done. I promise you, it will be more difficult than this. You'll build upon this. So you'll start with basic expressions to evaluate. It'll get more difficult. All right, let's take a look at the third example. Evaluate 8 plus W divided by 4 when W equals 16. So what am I substituting for W? Okay. So my order of operations, according to order of operations, what would I do first here?
It was in the parentheses. Wait, no.
So in this expression, according to operations, where do I start?
Divide.
Yeah, I'm going to start with dividing.
By 4.
So what's 16 divided by 4?
4.
All right. Then I'm going to bring down my 8 and my operation sign plus. And then I continue solving. So what's 8 plus 4?
12.
Questions?
So this is just on Khan Academy?
This is on Khan Academy. Remember, Khan Academy, the lab is worth, we have to check your syllabus, a certain percent of your final grade. So let's say, for example, let's say that you have an 85% in here. And you don't do any of your Khan topics that are due by September 22nd, it will drop you from a B to a C. Okay? So they are important. All right, let's take a look at the last part of your Khan notes. Evaluated expressions. Hey, I didn't say it's time to talk, did I? No, you're talking over me, which is rude. Evaluated expressions with 2 variables on Khan Academy. So now, this is basically the same thing you just did, but instead of only having 1 variable to substitute for, you have 2. So you're doing the exact same steps, except for you're having 2 variables you're going to substitute for. So example number 1, evaluate C divided by 2 minus 3 plus 6 divided by D when C equals 14 and D equals 3. So when we see that C, we're going to substitute 14. When we see the D, we're going to substitute 3. So go ahead and write that out accurately on your paper. So I'm going to have 14 for my C divided by 2. And then when I see my D, I'm going to substitute 3. Do you guys need to stay after class? Then I suggest you stop. Okay, now that I've substituted, I need to evaluate or solve. I need to do that by using PEMDAS. So I'm going to ask myself, do I have any parentheses where a group of numbers is within that set of parentheses? No. Then I ask, do I have any exponents? No. Multiplication or division? Do I have any multiplication or division? Yeah. I have right here and right here. So I'm going to do those both at the same time, going from left to right. So the first one I'm going to do is 14 divided by 2. What's 14 divided by 2? 7. I'm going to bring down my minus 3 because I can't do anything with that yet. And then I'm going to do my second division. 6 divided by 3. 2. And what's the operation sign between this 3 and the division problem? Plus. So I'm going to bring down that plus. So now that I've done multiplication and division going from left to right, I do my last step, which is addition and subtraction, solving them at the same time for going to left to right. So if I'm solving this from going left to right, I would take 7 minus 3 and get
4.
And then what's 4 plus 2? 6. That would be your final answer. You could show your work how I just did by slashing it out, or you could do that step in your head, or you could just 7 minus 3 is 4 plus 2 and bring it down. Either way, it's going to be acceptable. All right, this last example problem, this is where it's going to be important that you show and you use those parentheses when you go to substitute. You have 7y plus 13 minus 4z. So if I did not use the parentheses, 7y means to multiply. But if I just substituted 5 for that y and didn't use parentheses, it'd look like I'm doing 75 plus 13. Well, that's not accurate, is it? I'm taking 7 times y, so it's 7 times 5. So make sure you use those parentheses. What am I plugging in for my z? What value am I plugging in for z? 9. Okay. So now we solve. Order of operations. Do I have any parentheses within a set, like a set of numbers in parentheses? Not a parentheses meaning to multiply. No. Exponents.
No.
Multiplication or division?
No. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to do multiplication at the same time. So what's 7 times 5?
35.
So I'm going to bring 35. I'm going to bring down my plus 13 and my subtraction sign because I'm not ready to work with those yet. And then what's my second multiplication?
Is it like 32?
Well, close. 4 times 9 is 36. Okay? Then from here, I've done my multiplication. There's no division. So I do my addition and subtraction going from left to right. So if I'm doing my addition and subtraction going from left to right, well, what's 35 plus 13? So we're going to have 48. And then I drop down my minus 36. Or you can do it all in one step and solve. Then what's 48 minus 36? I think I've got it. Say it again. 12. That's your final answer. Any questions? Okay, then we're going to stop there for the day.